Thanks everyone. Could you please remember to switch your electronic devices to silence? Welcome everybody. I'd also like to welcome those viewers at home who are watching the meeting via the live stream this evening. I'll now ask you all if you please stand up, and Deputy Mayor Proud, if you could read out the opening prayer. Thanks.
Almighty God, we ask you to guide us in all our discussions to show goodness, honesty, understanding and wisdom in all that we undertake to do. May we respect each other's views at all times, and we ask all of this in your name. Amen.
Councillor Migdale, could you read out the acknowledgement of country, please?
On behalf of councillors, we'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of this land, the Whadjuk people of the Noongar Nation on which this meeting is taking place, and show our respect for elders past, present and emerging.
Thank you. You can take your seats. Without prior approval, any recording of this meeting is prohibited. No action should be taken on any resolution of council prior to written advice from the city being received. Brings us to item 1, the official opening. Ladies and gentlemen, I declare the council meeting of the 15th of August 2023 open at 6:31 p.m. Item 2, attendance and apologies. I have nil. 3, approved leave of absence. We have Councillor Bianca Sandri, who's been granted the leave of absence for the dates 15th of August and 29th of August 2023. Councillor Joe Ferrante, who's granted the leave of absence from the 14th of August to the 20th of August 23 inclusive. The following councillor has an upcoming leave of absence. Councillor Tony Kristovich, granted the leave of absence from the period 28th of August to the 17th of October inclusive. Item 4, disclosure of interest. There were no disclosures from the Planning and Development Committee meeting on the 8th of August. Councillors, are there any disclosures for this evening's meeting? No indication at the moment. Just keep an eye on it during the evening, please. Item 5, petitions. We received an e-petition regarding a dog park in Balga. Councillor Criado, would you like to read out this petition, please?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. The following e-petition containing 109 verified signatures has been received by the city. We, the undersigned, do respectfully request that the council consider the following improvements to the Balga Dog Park. Improved lighting. While the adjacent soccer club and skate park are well lit, the Balga Dog Park is located in a dark corner of the reserve and does not benefit from this lighting. Especially in the cooler months, park users need improved lighting in the car park and parks in order to extend the time they can access the dog park and ensure their furry friends get enough exercise in the mornings and or evenings while still feeling safe. Shelters. A shelter for fur parents to gather during wet or hot weather would improve the amenity of the park for all and provide more opportunities to make use of the park year-round. An additional water fountain and dog water bowl on the outside edge of the park would be much appreciated by all thirsty pups. This petition was created through a poll of more than 100 users of the Balga Dog Park on the park's Facebook group. These 3 requests were consistently mentioned and voted as the highest priority. And the petition has been forwarded to the Recreation and Leisure Services Business Unit. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any unverified petitions to present this evening? If not, can I have a mover and a seconder, please, to receive those petitions? Moved Councillor Thornton, seconded Councillor Migdale. Just a show of hands, councillors, to accept those. That's unanimous. Thank you. 6, responses to previous questions from members of the public taken on notice, and those public question time responses from the last council meeting were published in the minutes of that meeting. Brings us to item 7, which is public question time. We have received a few for this evening, so I'll invite you up. If I can invite Julie Ryan to come up first, please. And when you come forward, if you can just press the bottom right-hand corner of the microphone, you'll see a silver button and you'll see a red light come on. That's it. Now you can just leave that on. You don't have to worry about it anymore. If you can just say your name and your suburb, and I'll take your question, please.
Julie Ryan, and it's North Beach. And the question is, this is regarding Mr. Darcy's Cafe, Restaurant, Bar. Clause 5.1.2 of the Acoustics Report and Management Plan for Mr. Darcy's requires use of table talkers throughout the alfresco area to remind patrons to limit their noise and respect the neighbouring residences, and for the venue staff to monitor dispersed of patrons after closing and manage any noise issues arising. We are dealing with noise from people leaving the bar late at night, waiting for public transport, speaking loudly, calling out, laughing, with no regard to local residents, and no attempt by venue staff to manage the noise with signage or in person. How does the council intend to manage this issue to protect local residents?
Thank you. Ms Lambaka.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, through you. So officers are continuing to work with Mr Darcy to achieve compliance with the relevant regulations. The City is monitoring the implementation of the recommendations of the Noise Management Plan and the noise emissions related to the operation of the venue. So the Noise Management Plan provided several recommendations for the business to implement, including the use of table talkers in the alfresco area to encourage patrons to limit noise and respect neighbouring residences, and officers are continuing to work with the proprietor to address these issues.
Can't hear.
Yeah. Can we just get you to finish that last bit? Can you bring the microphone closer and speak louder? Sorry, it sort of faded out.
Thank you. Through you, Mr Mayor. I don't usually have this issue because I'm so short. I think I've got a faulty mic here. So the last bit that I'd said was the Noise Management Plan provided several recommendations for the business to implement, including the use of table talkers in the alfresco area to encourage patrons to limit noise and respect neighbouring residences.
I understand that, but how is it being monitored?
I'm sorry, you have to just ask questions through me.
Oh, sorry.
That's right.
Okay. So that's it.
So, yeah, and look, this has come up previously. Understanding your frustrations, Ms Ryan, one of the issues is the process is completely legislated. So once a noise abatement notice or the noise management plan, the business always has an opportunity to present a noise management plan. Currently that has happened, and the city will continue working with them to make sure all those things are ticked off. Understanding there is frustrations and it does take time. Unfortunately, the only other action that can be taken is legal action, and then nothing happens for anyone. So this is a much better outcome, but we'll continue to work with them, and we're also happy to continue receiving any feedback from the residents to try to work out how to go.
Sure there will be. Thank you.
Jeff Smith, please.
Jeff Smith, Stirling. Are councillors aware that when the city approved the destruction of the Cedric Street wetland, they agreed to create a series of...
Sorry, can I just get you to stop? Have we got a volume on the microphones tonight? Is there a side volume? Because they all seem very quiet. I'm struggling to hear them all as well. And I'm sure there's some people up the back probably the same. Yeah, if you try again, just make sure they are close to you as you speak. Thank you. Sorry to interrupt you.
I'll start again.
Yes, yeah.
Are councillors aware that when the city approved the destruction of the Cedric Street wetland, they agreed to create a series of interconnected wetlands to replace the ecological, hydrological and social functions of the Cedric Street wetland and the damp land to the south of the wetland, subject to the conditions detailed in Ministerial Statement 522, relocation of the Cedric Street wetland?
Mr Chipper.
Through the Chair, the Osborne Park Ward councillors sit on the Rosalie Integrated Catchment Management Working Group, and they're aware of this matter. The Cedric Street Wetland Function Replacement Master Plan was produced in 2004, and this plan detailed the wetland values which needed to be installed at the three locations, including Rosalie Lake, Princeton Lake and Telford Crescent.
Thank you. And your second question?
Are the councillors aware that the Telford Crescent wetland, the Rosalie Lakes wetland and the Princeton Estate wetland, formerly Hamilton Lakes, were and continue to be subject to stringent design, construction, management and ongoing maintenance conditions as detailed in Ministerial Statement 522?
Mr Chipper.
Yes, again, the Osborne Park Ward councillors are aware of these conditions. The Cedric Street Wetland Function Replacement Master Plan did set out a series of requirements to install the wetland functions at each of those three locations. The city does undertake regular maintenance, and the Water Corporation also undertakes maintenance as required.
Thank you. And your third question, please.
Are the councillors aware that the City commissioned Parsons Brinckerhoff to develop the Cedric Street Wetland Function Replacement Master Plan, Telford Crescent Wetland Conceptual Design, as a condition precedent to the Ministerial Statement 522?
Thank you. Mr Chipper.
Yes, the offset for the Cedric Street wetland was initially going to be Telford Crescent. To achieve this, the Cedric Street Relocation Environmental Management Plan was produced in 1999. Subsequently, though, it was decided that the wetland function of the Cedric Street wetland would be achieved through the creation of the wetland sites within the three sites, Rosalie Lake, Princeton Lake and Telford Crescent. As part of this, the Cedric Street Wetland Function Master Plan was produced in 2004.
Thank you for your questions. Tony Carter. Just your name and suburb, please, to start, and then your questions, please.
Tony Carter, Stirling. That is the suburb of Stirling within Stirling.
Yes.
Can get a little bit confusing. Good evening. Are councillors aware that the city is unable to provide any evidence that they complied or continued to comply with the conditions of Ministerial Statement 522 when they developed the Telford Crescent wetland?
Thank you. Mr Chipper.
The Cedric Street Wetland Function Replacement Master Plan was produced in 2004, as I noted earlier. This plan detailed the wetland values which needed to be installed at the three locations, including Telford Crescent. The requirements were to install an open water zone, an emergent zone, a damp zone, and an ephemeral bush zone, and these were all completed. It should be noted that some of the ephemeral zone at Telford Crescent was recently disturbed as part of the Stevenson Avenue works.
Thank you. Your second question, please.
Yep. I'm just bemused by the response. Second question, are councillors aware that the city is unable to provide evidence that the developer of the Rosalie Lakes wetland and the developer of Princeton Lakes wetland complied with the design and construction requirements of Ministerial Statement 522?
Thank you. Mr Chipper.
The Cedric Street Wetland Function Replacement Master Plan details what the functional wetland components needed to be installed at the Rosalie and Princeton Lakes. The requirements of what was needed to be achieved, which was an open water zone, an emergent zone and a damp zone, are present on site. Therefore, the city can provide that evidence.
Thank you. And your third question, please.
Look forward to seeing it, Your Worship. Are councillors aware that the city is unable to provide any evidence that they have complied and continue to comply with the management and ongoing maintenance conditions detailed in Ministerial Statement 522 in regards to the Rosalie Lakes wetland and the Princeton Estate wetland?
Thank you. Mr Chipper.
There was a query by the Rosalie Integrated Catchment Management Group regarding the submission of water quality results to the EPA circa 2005. The city did make queries with the EPA, but neither were able to find any explicit records. However, the city has complied with water quality monitoring requirements, having a water quality sampling and analysis plan since 2006 and has done regular annual water sampling.
So thank you for your questions, Mr Carter. Look, following this, obviously I can tell by the question there's some frustration there. I'm happy to set up
Absolutely, Your Worship. I can tell you there is plenty of frustration.
I can pick up on those nuances. So I'm quite happy to set up a meeting with both yourselves and city officers, and I know the ward councillors have been following up on this. So I think we'll probably do a post-meeting and have a catch-up regarding these.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks. Sam Danucci. Hope I pronounced that right.
Yes, Stirling and Hector Street, and I'm here with my neighbour Tom Berry this evening. Thank you for your time, Mr Mayor. Our issues concern the proposed development along Hector Street of a Safe Active Street cycleway. So in regards to the Safe Active Street project, the community engagement report presented by the City of Stirling indicated that 2 letters were sent out to about 2,250 residents within 400 metres of Hector Street, and 2,150 emails sent to the wider community to initiate public comment. Only 188 people responded, i.e. 8%, and only 50 of those actually lived on Hector Street. This is about less than 2% of the population of those surveyed. The community consultation phase held in May, to which only about 200 people were invited, was limited and only saw roughly about 25 people attend the public meetings. This is less than 0.5%. The lack of community response strongly suggests that most people in Chewett Hill areas are largely unaware of the project and most certainly are unaware of the massive changes that the project's going to bring to Hector Street. Also of concern is the fact that the initial public surveys were conducted without any design plans available for anyone to see before the surveys. So in essence, we believe the survey was flawed. So our first question is, given the lack of public knowledge about the project and the lack of detailed public consultation, will the City consider delaying further progress on the project and take some serious action and steps to ensure greater publicity of the project, ensure further community consultation, and ensure that more time is made available for public feedback to the project?
Thank you. Mr Murphy.
Thank you for the question. Through you, Chair. As Director, I am aware there's been an extensive consultation process. I'm not aware of all the detail. I can confirm that the report is no longer scheduled to go to committee on the 22nd of August because I think we've listened to some of those concerns and we're happy to continue that dialogue with the residents that have those concerns.
Beautiful. Yes, I became aware of that this evening. Thank you, sir. Shall I proceed to the second question?
Yes.
The planned Safe Street Active design for Hector Street will have a massive and lasting impact on residents of Hector Street, which involves the closures of many streets, intersections. The streets are going to be narrowed by at least a metre. Speed limits will reduce to 30 kilometres an hour and there will be curbside parking. Our understanding is the project is to be substantially funded by the government grants. So the question is, were other alternative designs investigated or proposed for the project, and would the Council be prepared to revamp the designs so that they were less intrusive and less impactful on the community?
Thank you. Mr Murphy.
Yes, through you, Chair. Again, I couldn't tell you right now what the other designs look like, but I know a number of options were considered, and we're happy to look at the current design again based on your feedback.
Yeah, so we were aware of that. So I'll rip into my third question. So the proposed plan, as said, involves some very serious disruption to traffic flow. And I've just jumped there. The feasibility studies indicate that Hector Street has volumes of traffic of about 1,500 vehicles a day compared to other streets, but there's no real data provided as to how many cyclists use this route on a weekly basis or daily basis. And after 35 years in the suburb, our observations would indicate that there are very few cyclists utilising this route. Yet the City plans to develop Hector Street to favour a handful of cyclists over a substantial number of vehicles. Our experience is that most cyclists utilise Cape Street as it is a preferred route because it's flatter and easier to navigate. Hector Street, on the other hand, is very steep between Main and Stoneham Street, and this deters many cyclists. So the question number 3 is, what data has the City collected regarding the current use of Hector Street by cyclists, and are there any projections of the number of cyclists that are expected to use this route in the future?
Mr Murphy.
Yeah, thank you. And through you, Mr Mayor, I'll need to take that question on notice and we'll provide an answer in writing.
Yeah.
Thank you for your questions.
We have a fourth question. Do you want me to just read it out, save Tom from getting up?
Oh, if it's just one more question, if you
Yeah,
like.
so Tom was going to answer, so well, I've got it here anyway. We understand you can't answer these questions tonight because it's a huge issue. The fourth question relates to the Safe Active Street design calls for parallel parking in various zones along Hector Street. At the public consultation meeting, the issues were raised that Grenville Oval often has dozens of cars, sometimes buses included, and trucks parked on the verge. Many of them are waiting to pick up students after school from Servite and St Kieran's, and then there are frequent sporting events, and at other times the Oval is just used recreationally, and some days it's actually packed out. It's clear that the new parallel parking design will not accommodate the volume of cars that currently visits the Oval on a daily basis. We did raise this at the public consultation meeting. So the question is, what plans or modifications have been made to accommodate parking issues in Hector Street adjacent to Grenville Oval should the project go ahead?
And look, and I can probably say that we haven't got all of that data to provide that, and we'll provide you a response in writing. What I can also just highlight is we are familiar with the issues we're dealing with right now in having yourselves come. We've done one of these before, and the obvious answer to all of this is we need to do more consultation. The Safe Active Streets are based on data that's not specific to that area. So they're based on providing safe networks for cyclists to go through there, Safe Active Street. The designs are fairly set because that's how the state government fund them. So there are certain requirements, and that's not always conducive to the feedback we get. So it's important we'll take a long process and ensure that we consult with the neighbourhood and get this right.
Thank you. Your time is appreciated.
Thank you. I'll just rule to extend question time and invite Mr Hadley to come forward if you'd like to come up.
Good evening all. Roland Hadley, Woodlands. When will the report of the $22,000 recent trip to China by the Mayor, Councillor Proud and a staff member be published on the city's website? Ratepayers are dying to know.
Shortly, Mr Hadley.
Can you define shortly, please?
I'll have it up for you by next week.
Thank you very much. Before I get on to question 2, I would just like to comment on the quality of development art displayed in parks. To me, is sadly lacking. The photograph shown in the Perth Voice of six metal poles in Hamer Park is a prime example, and ratepayers must wonder who approves these strange items. If these 6 poles were rearranged into a bench, I think half the ratepayers would welcome it. Anyway, leading on to my...
Art is in the eye of the beholder, Mr Hadley.
Indeed it is, indeed it is. Leading on to my second question, to the Mayor's proposal to defer for 1 year the financial contribution for development art. He believes that the poverty-stricken developers are having a lean time. Very sad, very tragic. They have to pay a token amount for developments over 5 million and slightly more for developments up to 50 million. So what you're effectively saying is the council will defer or waive this fee so the developer could quickly push on and commence building. To me, if a developer has 15 million, 30 million or 45 million, would he be concerned about a token fee of 40,000, 50,000? It is not a very good image for yourself, Mr Mayor.
In your humble opinion, I'm sure, Mr Hadley, but if you read the report, it's asking for information on the implications of that. The amounts certainly aren't insignificant, and figures up to $1 million for some of the developments that are happening in Stirling are put aside for some public art policy that are then set in some reserve that never gets spent. My problem isn't whether we develop public art in the public realm. It's that all these costs currently are creating a situation where developments aren't breaking ground. We haven't had a new development start in the City of Stirling, significant development for over a year, and it's contributing to the affordable housing glut that we currently have.
I would disagree on that one. I don't think the ratepayers would be very much concerned about the poor developers, but probably more concerned about a mayor advocating financial support for developers. That's my second question. My third question is, if you just bear with me 1 minute. Has the mayor, councillors updated their record of declared interest in properties? Family members linked to the city's contracts for tree lopping, supply vehicles, panel beating, legal companies, etc., etc. And where can ratepayers locate this record, this conflict of interest register?
Thank you, and that does get updated every year by councillors. Mr Blanchard will provide you the link in writing, so you can
Thank you very
have a
much.
look at that.
Thank you.
Peter Ellis.
Peter Ellis from Corrine. Good evening, Mr Mayor. Good evening, councillors, fellow ratepayers and staff. Why is there such an increase in employees' costs? On page 204 of the 2021-22 annual report, it lists employee costs for 2021 at $84,298,287 and for 2022 as $90,545,522, and the agenda list of the council meeting on the 4th July 2023, it lists the actual cost on page 307 as $112,916,632.
I was wondering the same thing myself, Mr Ellis. I'll see if Ms Hawkins can answer for us.
Thank you, through you, Mr Mayor. Thank you, Mr Ellis. There's actually a few different items that impact the difference between financial year 21 and 22. The main ones are the pay award that was provided to staff. There's the superannuation change, and you'll know that that will continue on for a number of years. We also filled vacancies which we'd held during COVID, so that happened as well. And there's also a corresponding reduction in the materials and contracts works, because what we did was we moved work from contractors back in-house because that was providing us value for money. And then in terms of the 112 million, that's within the budget for 22-23 against the financial statements which have the 90 million, which actually are not comparable figures because one includes labour recoveries to capital projects and the other doesn't. But certainly there will be an increase again through pay awards, etc., and superannuation increases. So when we produce our next annual report, we'll see that figure.
Thank you, very nicely. I'll read that and that'll take me a while to
I thought it was pretty well done, Ms Hawkins.
Yes, it was well done, thank you. From the council meeting of the 30th of May, it lists additional information where it states verbatim, routine practice at large metropolitan local governments and other leading organisations, in verbatim. Can you supply me with the names and addresses of those organisations referred to?
Thank you. Well,
yeah, on notice?
so in relation to...
On that meeting, the answer said that it was routine practice to follow. I'll have to go.
We'll listen to the recording.
I'll go and do
we'll
it.
provide you a response in writing.
I'll go and do it again. I'll give him a copy. Okay. Does the CEO certify that the minutes of the previous council meeting are a true and correct record of that meeting when he presents a signed copy of the previous council minutes to council members?
Yes, but it goes through me. The mayor certifies them after council sign off on them.
All right. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank
Mr.
you.
Mayor, councillors.
Thank you. That's all I have. Have I missed anyone? Yes, sir. If you... Yeah, you're welcome to come up. And if you're going to start with your name and suburb.
Yep, Greg Bell, North Beach.
Thank you.
I think I know where some of those costs went up because I walk Star Swamp Reserve every morning, rain, hail or snow. They're spraying the hell out of that place. And the thing is, they're spraying it with Fusilade, which is they're all herbicides, but they're also spraying glyphosate like there's no tomorrow, which we smell it walking around. So it's not only us, people who live there, it's a problem. I wonder about all the animals and the birds, and of course it's a slope down into the swamp. So eventually it'll get down into the swamp. It's probably already there now. I'm just wondering whether anyone's looked at using something different rather than the glyphosate.
Yes, we have. So this council has a policy to reduce its glyphosate usage by over 80%, and it's on target to, I think it's 2025, to have it reduced and being replaced with steam weeding. There are certain exceptions of that, and most of those are in bushland reserves where the bushland management basically requires those herbicides to be able to manage those.
Mm. Yeah, well, it's very unfortunate for the animals and the humans. I've just got one more question.
Sure.
And this is something more general, but is the City of Stirling working towards a smart city or 15-minute cities?
I'll get Mr. Rodich to provide a response.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Thanks for the question, Mr. Bell. Yes, through our planning frameworks, we do look to, I guess, consolidate our urban development along our activity corridors, which in principle would support the principles of the 15-minute city.
Just can I ask another question
Yes,
on that?
you can.
Is that following the UN agenda?
Mr. Rodich?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, no.
Okay, thank you very kindly.
Thank you for your questions. That brings us on to close to public question time, brings on to item 8, which is applications for leave of absence. Councillors, are there any requests for a leave of absence? No indication. Item 9, confirmation of minutes. Councillors, can I have a mover and a seconder to accept the minutes of the ordinary meeting of Council held the 1st of August 2023. Move Councillor Olo, seconded Councillor Hatton, and a show of hands, councillors, to accept those minutes. That is unanimous. Thank you. Announcements by the presiding member, I have nil. 11 unresolved business from previous meetings, I have nil. And that takes us on to the reports and recommendations from committee. Councillors will deal with the Planning and Development Committee meeting items. There are no items that need to be pulled out. They're all put through from committee. Is there anyone who needs to pull one of those items out? If not, I will go to, sorry, Councillor Ree.
Yes, please. May I pull out, where are we? DS 12.1 DS2 on page 19. Also, the 12.1 CPS2 on page 73, please.
Thank you. Are you opposed to these, or you just got some questions?
Both. Bit of both.
Okay, so we'll,
Hang on, wait a minute. I better take out the 12.1, 8.1, the Land Asset Action Plan.
that is confidential, so we'll deal with that at the end. Right. Thanks. So we'll go to 12.1 DS2. Councillor Hatton as chair of that, Councillor Migdal, apologies, as chair of that committee. If you'd like to move.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. I'd like to move committee's recommendation.
Thank you. Is there a seconder for committee's recommendation? Thank you, Councillor Olo. Councillor Ree, have you got a question or are you opposed? Councillor? Councillor, I've got a question for you. Are you opposed to this item or have you got a question? Okay. Just your microphone then.
Why can't I find it? Page 19. Sorry. My apologies. Went to the wrong page. My question is whether or not issues such as the increase of two questions. One, that the increase of the buildings in Innaloo, Scarborough, various Balga, wherever, Mirrabooka, whether or not they have a cumulative impact on the public open space. Because what we're doing is we're looking at developments and we say they've got to have a percentage of public open space. But when we're looking at some of these developments that we've got 20-odd buildings or 20-odd units going on where it used to have one, we don't seem to be using the same protocol or the same percentage that we used to have for landscaping when we're looking at this particular issue of public open space. And I've just wondered whether it's going to be cumulative because it's not mentioned.
Sorry, Mr Ruddish.
Through you, Mr Mayor. Councillor, this is about public open space, not landscaping on a site. But in terms of, I guess, urban infill, of course there is, I guess, an impact on open space as it's used more as we grow and the population grows through the provision of additional housing in our suburbs. But this draft policy doesn't talk to landscaping. This is about the provision of public open space.
Thank you for that comment, and that's actually my point, because it doesn't get addressed. We're looking at landscaping when we look at multiple units.
So I just need questions,
but it does impact upon the public open space. So in other words, the answer is no, we're not addressing it in this as a cumulative issue. The other question is, with the Stirling City Centre project, the Herdsman Glendalough project, the Scarborough project, are these actually being addressed in this as well? Because they also say that you've got to have a percentage of public open space. However, the impact on the density of development is actually reducing the amount of public open space, and I don't see that being addressed either.
I think that's what the whole item is about, Mr Ruddish.
Through you, Mr Mayor. Councillor Ree, this is about the state's, I guess, position on public open space requirements through subdivision strata titling of properties. We talked to the Herdsman Glendalough structure plan area, Stirling City Centre. These are structure plans, and as part of those considerations of that structure plan process, we do look at public open space. But this is about the operation of charging or applying a cash and lieu consideration from POS as part of a development. So it's a little bit different than what you're talking about. As we know, as Perth continues to grow, the provision, I guess the amount of open space we have and the type of open space is very, very important, and yes, it will get used more, but it's a little bit different what you're talking about today. This is just an operational policy, how we apply cash and lieu to subdivisions and strata title developments. But it's a state's policy, not ours.
That actually is my point, because this is a draft policy. Why aren't we in this draft policy calling up the structure plans? Because that is the point. What you've said is really correct, but why can't we put them all together and say, these are the rules? Why can't we just join them all up and say, if you're going to do this, it must apply to the structure plans as well? Can we put that in there somewhere or make a comment? I mean, we know that the structure plans get changed. We know that Bush Forever sort of disappears too.
Mr Rodish.
Through Mr. Mayor, Councillor, it's a separate issue. Look, I can take this offline. We can have a separate discussion about structure plans and the consideration of open space. This is an operational policy about the application of cash in lieu as led through the Planning Development Act.
Thank you.
My last question is, why can't it be incorporated in here to give it to state government then, that they show...
Thank you. So it's been answered, Councillor Ree. It's
Let's
completely...
taking it offline.
Yeah, but it's
the
completely
question's still
different
not
to this.
answered.
It's completely different to the response that's going to this draft operational policy.
I know, that's why I'm saying we should join them together.
Well, so there's been no debate on this. I'll put the item. Sorry, I've got is there a question over here?
I guess it's just a point of clarification. It's one
no,
sentence.
Let's go to the vote. Thank you, that's unanimous. We'll go to the next one, 12.1 CPS2, Lease and Licence Agreements Policy, being pulled out by Councillor Ree. Councillor Migdale is Chair of the Committee.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. I'd like to move the committee's recommendation.
Thank you. Is there anyone to second that? Councillor Proud. Thank you. Councillor Ree, you opposed to this? Thank you. Councillor Migdale. You'd like to open debate?
I'll reserve.
Thank you. Councillor Proud.
The information is all in the report. We discussed this to death at the P&D committee on Tuesday.
Thank you. Councillor Ree.
Thank you. I'd like to just preface that while it says note the policy, that a policy on lease will be presented at future planning, is it whether or not, we have discussed this at length, and it's still on page 78 says these may include. This was one of the major issues that came out of those two forums which I pushed for with regard to water fountains, bores, gutters, fire, tree pruning and services around the road, air conditioning. We actually said it. I mean, it has upset people. There is an issue. The recommendation said notes. This says these may include. So what I'm saying, do we actually need to say, do I need to say in here, item 2, that these should be included in the agreement? And at the moment, the agreement is what? Because some people can have it and some people can't.
Thank you. Mr Quirk. Oh. Sorry, Mr Morellini.
Yeah, to the Chair, thank you for the question. We seek to obviously amend and renew the policy. The workshop went over a whole range of opportunities. We'd like to bring that back to Council for the entirety of Council to consider those changes, and that will include and can include the opportunities that you've mentioned in regards to bores and water fountains. So it's definitely on the agenda to include that in our workings of a new policy review to bring forward to the entire Council to vote on.
So I understand what you're asking for, Councillor Ree, but you will get an opportunity to see these when it comes back to Council.
So my point is coming back to all the people and all the clubs that took the time to come to those forums, which they were supposed to get a report back, and some of them have read this.
Councillor, you bring this up at every, you managed to link something in every meeting to that workshop. They were workshops that raised a few issues, and those issues have been addressed by officers over and over again. You've now got something where there is a policy coming back to address all those issues. So I don't know how many more times it can be addressed.
Mr Mayor, I attended both of those. You did not. You know?
I did, Councillor.
For 5 seconds. But those people that went
Councillor
there
Ree,
have
I'm going to,
serious
Councillor Ree,
concerns.
take a seat. Take a seat for a sec. Councillor Ree, if this was that important to you, you had the opportunity to be at Planning and Development with the rest of this council to discuss these issues. You've now pulled out 3 items to ask questions that you've asked over and over again about the same items. I'm telling you that has been answered over and over again, and Mr Morellini has just given you confirmation that those items will be contained in the policy that comes back to this council. If you have a separate question, you may now ask it. Thank you.
I could make a comment on that, but I will reserve it. My only comment is, why does it have to be early 24? Why can't it be earlier? That's my only comment. If we've been going on for over and over again, because it's only taken a couple of years to get to this level.
I would suggest that it has to be early 24 because by the time we go through the caretaker period and the policy takes time to develop, we're going to be in November with only 2 meetings, so we run out of time. Would you like to continue debate? That's it. Thank you. Councillor Migdale, would you like to close debate?
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and I just want to thank everyone who did attend planning and development. There was robust discussion and debate around this item. I would also like to thank Mr Morellini for all of his great work in getting us to where we are at with our licence agreements, and I look forward to early 2024 when we are presented with the amended policy and we work further on it. Thank you.
Thank you. And with that, that closes debate. So with that, that closes debate. So I will put that item. We've got to vote on that one first, don't we? Lucky we've got all these chairs sitting around the table down there. But sorry, can we finish? We haven't finished the vote, councillors. I've put this to the vote. Once we finish the vote, we'll move on in the meeting. Thank you, and that is unanimous. We now go to item 12.1, 8.1, Land Asset Action Plan. It's been pulled out by Councillor Ree. Is there questions or do you need this? Okay, so Councillor Migdale.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'll move the committee's recommendation.
Thank you, and a seconder for the committee's recommendation. Councillor Lagan. Councillor Ree, your question?
One question is why it has to be under confidential cover. There's no names, there's no organisations. One would have thought that if you take that out, then it's a plan. So some of the things can be deleted. A lot of it people know because it's already been out there several times. So that's one question, and I am aware that council can vote for it not to be confidential.
Thank you, Mr Morellini. Mr Blanchard.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Planning and Development Committee resolved to consider the matter behind closed doors. That was for 2 reasons. One, because it relates to contracts entered into or may be entered into by local government. Secondly, because it contains information about the price of the sale of purchase of a property and the discussion of such a matter. And the City does not wish to disclose property valuations and contractual intent for its entire property portfolio, as to do so may erode the commercial value of that portfolio and undermine the City's negotiating position.
Thank you. Councillor Ree.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I think they were going to take out a lot of those things that were suggested, but obviously they chose not to for whatever reason. My second question is whether or not this has to be considered tonight, because there's some issues in there that that, without holding everybody up to talk about it, which I did discuss with the officers, whether or not that actually can be held over. Is there any time frame? Are we tied into anything to say it has to be done now?
I'll get clarification on that, Councillor. I don't think there's... So each item in there is still a fluid item, while the actual Land Asset Action Plan is a document that will be endorsed by Council. The actual individual items, each of those will be able to change as we go through. So that doesn't have to be held up if that's your intent. Is that your intent?
Whether or not it could be, held over to another meeting for bits and pieces that need to be rationalised, or if you think, because it does say endorse it, but it does say note. So if it was the council notes the plan, it would probably sit better, I think.
So again, just for clarity, so whilst council is endorsing the action plan, each individual item in there has to come back to council for individually if any dealings are done with that. So if it's only those things, then that will get dealt with in that way. So in that case, I will put that one to the vote.
Sorry, I'm just going to make the last comment as the mover and say, well articulated, Mr Mayor.
Thanks.
Thank you.
And I will put that to the vote. Thank you, and that is unanimous. Thank you. Balance of the reports now, Councillor Migdale.
Thank you. I'll move the balance of reports by exception resolution.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor has seconded those, so I'll put the balance of reports to the vote. And that is unanimous. Thank you, councillors. This brings to item 13, reports for consideration with section 4.24 of the meeting procedures, local law, and we have nil on that tonight. So item 14, which is notice of motions for consideration, we'll start with you on 14.1, Councillor Suzanne Migdale. Your motion.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr Mayor. I would like to move my notice of motion on page 82 of the agenda, please.
Thank you. Is there someone who can second that motion? Thank you. Councillor Lagan, is there anyone opposed or any questions on that motion? Thank you. In that case, I will put that one to the vote. Thank you. And that motion is carried. Councillor Farrelly and myself voting against. Item 14.2, proposed notice of motion, Councillor Migdale, beach umbrella and equipment hire. Your motion, please.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd like to move the alternate recommendation per your agendas. If you turn to page 7 of your agenda, 14.2, alternative recommendation.
Thank you. And is there a seconder for that motion? Councillor Perkoff. Is there anyone opposed? Councillor Farrelly, I'll go to you, Councillor Migdale.
I'm not opposed, I just want to add amendment.
Okay, well, if it's just a simple amendment to it, I'll check with you before we go and see how we go.
Okay. Just add to it?
Yes, stand up.
Okay.
You can try to
I
add to
didn't
it.
put it through. Is it there at all? So, and it's based on the previous, sorry, I didn't have the other one in front of me, but I think you could add it as 1 or 2.
So just to change it to...
The community undertakes community consultation to directly inform the types of beach equipment hire that will be sought for Scarborough Beach. And from then on, it can be the amended one as Councillor Migdale is speaking about.
So you're asking for community consultation before it?
Yes. Well, I'm asking.
The only thing I would suggest is that's the intent of Councillor Migdale's motion, is to have a trial period to ascertain the communities.
This is really before, to inform the community, because in regard to it, as you know, the normalisation only just came through.
Yeah, so it's not. I can't let you debate it yet.
I can't. All right. Sorry. Yeah. Okay. But I know it's slightly different. Yes.
Well, it's adding a whole other step in. That's all. So I will ask Councillor Migdale if she's...
Thank you, Mr Mayor. No, I do not support that amendment. The only reason why I do not in this instance support it is because we have hundreds of thousands of visitors to Scarborough Beach year round. So to engage with 400 people or thereabouts just doesn't make sense to me.
So let's just... That's all right. We can do this another way. So you can stay standing, Councillor Migdale. I'll just get you to open debate. And then I'll come back to you after as an opposed, and then you can talk about it.
Okay. Hi, everybody. So the notice of motion that I've raised here this evening is that as a city we allow operator or operators to hire beach equipment at Scarborough Beach. Primarily the driving force of this notice of motion is to enable visitors to the beach to provide themselves with shade on the beach. Everybody who has grown up in Perth knows that our beaches are not for the faint-hearted. They're not a couple of metres to the water. You've got a fair trek ahead of you to get down to the water, and if you'd like to lie on the beach and enjoy the beautiful ocean that we have, you are very hard-pressed for any shade unless you drag it there yourself. And I can tell you that's no mean feat. I do it from time to time, but only time to time. Though if there were an option for me to hire a beach umbrella and even maybe dare I say, a lazy boy thing that you can lie on, I would certainly be partaking in that, as I, unlike other councillors, don't get overseas vacations that often. I had to slip that in. So the reason I did suggest that I'm not in this instance, and I always support community consultation, though in this instance, many people who visit Scarborough Beach don't live anywhere near Scarborough, but we all make the trek. Certainly myself, Yokine, Mount Lawley, Coolbinia, Dinella, Inglewood, we go to the beach, we go to Scarborough Beach. So if we were only to consult with a small pocket of people who lived in Scarborough right on the ocean, well, hey, you know, I don't know that that should affect everybody from the city with the outcomes. It's not quite fair. Remembering, of course, that Scarborough Beach is public open space for everybody within the city of Stirling to enjoy, and the hundreds of thousands of visitors who come from all over the world and frequent our beaches without any idea at all how vicious our sun is. They're certainly not going to be dragging their beach umbrella with their backpacks and everything else. So ideally, I have spoken with the Cancer Council, who are certainly all about this. I do have a few questions, because I know that some councillors may have questions around this. So I have a few questions to officers just to make sure everything is clear. So through you, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to ask officers to please clarify if or how this notice of motion falls under the beach activation policy.
Mr. Quirk. Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, we do have an existing policy which enables the city to approve activities, and most of those activities are recreational in nature within the Foreshore Reserve. In our view, that the scope of what's being proposed would fit under that policy.
Thank you. And through you, Mr. Mayor, could you please outline what part of the beach or coastline this might apply to?
Mr. Quirk. Through you, Mr. Mayor, elected members may have noted that we haven't been too prescriptive in the NOM response report, and that is really because we intend to go out through an expression of interest process and understand what the market and what equipment providers may come back with. Obviously, it's vitally important that we don't adversely impact the public's access to the beach, and being the director who oversees beach services and our liaison with surf schools and surf lifesaving clubs, obviously making sure that any services don't negatively impact the beach experience will be an important consideration.
Thank you.
Thank you. And will an operator have a private section of beach to the exclusion of others? Through you, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Quirk. Through you, Mr. Mayor, no, certainly the intention is to provide designated areas for an operator or operators to provide a particular service, but they will not have exclusivity to that part of the beach. Anyone will be able to access any part of the beach. It is a fully public area.
Councillor.
Thank you. And what would be the cost to the city's ratepayers before providing this service?
Mr. Quirk. Through you, Mr. Mayor, so the intention of this EOI process is for it to be really driven by the response to the EOI process. The city won't be expending anything towards this trial, obviously subject to the response, and if it was to continue in the future, it may incur both some expenditure and revenue.
So my next question was through you, Mr. Mayor. Is there scope for charging operators for this permit during the trial or beyond, thereby creating a new revenue stream for the city which may offset rates?
Mr. Quirk. Through you, Mr. Mayor, under our current proposal, it isn't seeking a revenue return from operators through the trial period, although if this is successful, that certainly is an opportunity that I think Council should pursue.
Councillor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I just want to clarify, when I considered this notice of motion and I saw the report and it suggested 24 months, at first I thought, hang on a sec, that's really quite a long period of time. Normally, when we run a trial, we run it for 12 months. But in this instance, these operators would only operate 6 months of the year. So in order to give them a year's trial, we would need to run it over 2. Though in the report you may have seen, after 18 months, we will receive information back on whether it was successful or not. I dare say on the Mediterranean, you'd be hard-pressed to find a beach that you wouldn't be able to use an umbrella and some type of something to lay on for those of us who don't like sand. Not mentioning any names, Suzanne Migdal, but really, guys, the intent here this evening is to offer sun-smart behaviour, to encourage sun-smart activities on a beach where we can activate and enjoy our open space. I am cursed with skin that burns very, very quickly in the sun. I, for one, would be all about seeing somebody trial this so that we can all, regardless of, whether we can handle the sun or not, that we can all enjoy this beautiful coastline of ours. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Perkoff.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And how nice is it to come back and hear a motion like this, considering that I'm one of those vacationing councillors that's just come back from the Adriatic, from Croatia, where these things are all over the beaches, as a matter of fact. It really is good.
And you have a lovely suntan, Councillor Perkins.
Look at this. If I take the watch off, you'll see how much. And I did hop over to Italy as well. The beaches are not as nice, but they've got these umbrellas and lazy boys all over the place. It is absolutely a great service. And the sun over there is not as hot as over here, as Councillor Migdal has indicated. So I'm really excited about this. I don't think it's going to be that cheap at the end of the day. Well, let's see how it goes. All for it.
Thank you. Councillor Farrelly, you're opposed. I had some questions.
I'm actually not opposed to umbrellas being available on the beach, but I suppose in a way part of this motion or this notice of motion has come in a roundabout way without really any sort of discussion with the local councillors. So my concern is that, and I will ask the Director of Planning, that recently on Wednesday we had a move that of the master plan area went left Development WA as the ruling body to determine planning approvals, etc., in the area. Is that now going to make it possible, Mr. Director, for community to be more involved in decisions in what was the master plan area?
That is irrelevant to this, Councillor
Well, it's
Farrell.
not. Actually, it's not.
I'm sorry, Councillor. We're talking about umbrellas on the beach.
All right, I'll put it to you another way. There's been no opportunity to have any community consultation for change in the master plan area.
I'm sorry, it's nothing to do with this motion.
It is.
No, it's nothing. There's no development approval for...
Beach approval changes. What is happening on the beach is paramount to those.
I'm sorry, the city has always maintained control for beach activation on the Scarborough Beach foreshore area.
Right, okay.
Let's stick to this item, Councillor.
All right, okay. One of the things that was said, there was 400 people in Scarborough. I actually think one apartment block actually houses 400 people now. So that's quite a few apartment blocks that must be very empty. Do we have actually a population number, though, in the master plan area? Who would be able to provide that?
Lots. Councillor, I'm only going to go... I think you're getting off topic.
I
think you fundamentally agree with the idea. So if you've got specific things you'd like to change, you'd be better off debating those.
Well, all right, I did. I actually put it up there, and it wasn't accepted by Councillor
But that's why I'm
Migdal.
giving you another chance. You can now...
Well,
so if you'd like to move it as an amendment, you are welcome to.
Well, I'd like to move it as an amendment that the council undertakes community consultation to directly inform the types of beach equipment and services that... can we...
Yep.
I'm sorry, I'm just waiting for it to land. Where is it? Oh, that will be sought for Scarborough Beach. The reason for it, though, does go back to the fact...
you don't get to debate it yet. So...
Oh, okay, so, thanks.
So, councillors, let's be very clear. We're just going to... So we're seeking an amendment from Councillor Farrelly that prior to the trial taking place, that council undertakes community consultation to ask them what types of beach equipment hire services they would like before we go out for the expression of interest to the market. Is there a seconder for that amendment? Councillor Kristovich has seconded the amendment. Is there anyone opposed?
Well, a question.
Councillor Migdale is opposed.
A question.
Yeah, so I'll go to Councillor Farrelly. If you'd like to tell us a reason you'd like that amendment in there now.
The amendment itself can be done very simply. It can be a questionnaire that can be at the beach for people to indicate which way they feel about how if this will be carried, or do they want to add other things like other things associated with beach umbrellas, the manner in which it could be available, things of that nature. It gives the community an opportunity to participate in changes that are occurring on the beach that they use on a daily basis. It also enables probably new ideas to come forward that may be an adjunct to what Councillor Migdale has put forward. The disappointment I have in this notice of motion is that prior to this being put, we could have actually, myself and Councillor Kristovich could have gone around possibly with something and asked some opinions on those.
No. It doesn't work. This isn't
Yeah,
an election commitment. This is a community consultation you're asking for.
No, sorry, I'm not. It's not election. No,
No, but
I'm saying this
I'm just saying,
be a
Councillor,
simple
what you're...
form.
Sorry,
You know,
but listen, I need to understand this. You are asking for council.
Yeah.
Council undertaking community consultation isn't councillors going around with a bit of paper to sign. That's our community engagement team spending time and resources to go and do formal consultation. That's what you're asking for.
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
But can I just put it, there are different levels of formal consultation.
Yes.
And I'm looking at the one where you go online and you can actually participate in it.
Okay.
And it might be only for 2 or 3 weeks.
Councillor Kristovich, you seconded?
Look, what I will say is that I think this idea is great. I mean, I have no issues with the idea of having equipment on the beach. I do have a couple of questions very quickly.
No, you don't get any of those. This is purely...
On the consultation.
You seconded this motion for community consultation.
Oh, okay. Obviously, community consultation is always important to this council. We do it for so many different reasons. Specifically for this particular item, I'm sort of like I said, it's... I'm neither here nor there, really.
Councillor, you seconded it.
I
You
did.
can't say I'm neither here nor there.
Only from the point of view, it's good to talk to people. Well, just to, I suppose, make one point, and that was really just about talking to the co-ward councillors as a minimum of consultation. Would have been nice, but apart from that, I'll leave it at that.
Okay, Councillor Migdale, would you like to talk?
Thanks, Mr Mayor. As I previously stated, Scarborough Beach...
Sorry, let me just clarify. I'm
Yeah.
getting some angry looks. We're not talking about the substantive motion where you guys are in a queue. Councillor Migdale has opposed the amendment, which is what we are discussing at the moment. So you're allowed to smile.
So you're allowed to
I'm getting
smile.
angry looks
Smile,
down
everyone.
that side. You've missed me
Think
out.
about the beach.
Councillor Migdale.
We're not trying to reinvent the wheel here. When it comes to community consultation, as I said before, my concern is each and every one of us live in a different suburb around Stirling. Scarborough Beach is our beach. It's our beach.
Through the chair.
As a councillor for the City of Stirling, our role, our job is not only to represent our own backyard,
Councillor.
our ward,
Councillor.
but to represent the whole
Chair.
city. Oh, through the chair.
This way.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Through the chair. So yeah, you know, you can't, unless you want to do consultation of 223,000 people, I dare say the point is moot. Do we know that umbrellas and lazy boys would be needed or are necessary on the beach? Go to the beach on a sunny day, you'll see umbrellas and lazy boys. But there's people who are not catered for because for whatever reasons they can't bring them themselves. I, for one, having taken young kids to the beach, struggled to carry everything.
Yep,
But
so
I
again,
wanted-
you're
but
going
I
back to the
wanted
main one.
Sun Smart Safety, sorry, I don't accept this as an
All right.
alternative recommendation.
And if everyone's all right, I'm going to stop debate on the actual amendment. I think it's pretty clear what councillor's asking for. There's been a for and against, and then you can get back onto actually debating the umbrella one. So if you want it to go to community consultation first, support this. If you don't want it to go to community consultation and you want the trial to start immediately, then vote against. So you're voting for this if you want it to go to consultation. Thank you, councillor. So that amendment is lost. So we're going back to the substantive. And as such, we go back to Councillor Farrelly. So Councillor Farrelly, your amendment's been lost. So you are now debating Councillor Migdale's motion.
Oh, we've still got the, can you hear me through, Mr Mayor? Oh, right. Look, as I said before, I don't disagree with the beach umbrellas and other things, but by myself putting forward the amendment was to be inclusive to a community that have had very little opportunity to participate, and you might say in other matters around that area of the suburb. I take into account
Point of order, Mr. Mayor.
Scarborough is a regional beach.
Yeah, your point of order, councillor.
Look, twice the council's
Sorry, councillor.
mentioned...
Councillor Farrelly, just take a seat for a second.
Twice
Yep.
the council's mentioned that, in her opinion, there hasn't been enough consultation in that hub area. There has been extensive consultation prior to the government takeover, during and after. It's not correct to say there hasn't been community consultation.
Thank you.
There has been.
Yeah, and your point of order is correct. Councillor Farrelly, I know you've been frustrated with the development side of Scarborough, but it's really important to note that this is completely separate. The consultation for that Scarborough master plan was extensive. The development has now been handed back. The development approval side has been handed back to the city, and community will continue to be consulted and have their opportunity to say in those developments. But we are talking about equipment hire, including beach umbrellas and equipment on Scarborough Beach, which comes under the City of Stirling's remit and always has.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. It's interesting that a lot of the information in terms of the a few of the things on the beach that didn't get actioned, and that might have been my what would you call it? My misunderstanding of the amount of control that was extended into that beach area. Can I just say though, I do understand it's a regional beach, and that's one thing about it, is that it is there for everyone, there's no doubt about it. But to make the right decision to ensure that it has a uniqueness. Can I really say, I also do know Santa Rosa in Italy. It has the chairs and it has the umbrellas, and it looks pretty grotty because the sand is always covered by these reclining chairs, and they go out and in, and there's about 4 different colours, 4 different operators. It would be dreadful to see that, because our sand is beautiful, pristine, and the water isn't pea soup, it's a wonderful, clear, sparkling water. So I really don't support that the European, and I don't know the Croatian side, is it? Yeah, I have heard that too. So I really would like to say that I am very, can I just finally say though, in terms of what has gone on, and Councillor Lagan is very clear that there's been a lot of consultation. I came on board, I was elected because there was no consultation to community. Now, there's a difference between community and other things. So, Councillor Lagan, there might have been in the city's chambers, and as a councillor, I now realise how much is there.
Yep. I attended consultation at the beach for the public.
Thank you, Councillor Lagan. Noted. Councillor Farrelly, I think I really need to clear up, because the intent of this by Councillor Migdale, though, is quite clear when you read it, that the trial period is to do exactly what you're asking, and that is to get community feedback.
I'm going to trust our director. Yeah, thank you.
So I don't think the intent is not to get community buy-in here. We won't work without community buy-in and community feedback. Now,
and also it's the video's on, so yes, thank you.
I have Councillor Proud, then I have Councillor Thornton, then Councillor Perkoffs, then Councillor Reid. Councillor Proud.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. First of all, we need to actually do what we're proposing for people to have comment on. Now, let me not speak from the visitors to Saint-Tropez, Councillor Perkoff, and any other exotic beach. Let me talk about the people from Doubleview Ward who are just one street back, one step back, ward-wise, that do visit Scarborough Beach quite often. Now, everyone will recognise, and we speak about it often enough, some more than others, about the parking issue at Scarborough. Now, to get the people of Doubleview and the 5 wards in Doubleview to go to the beach on public transport, that would be to provide amenities down the beach that they don't have to bring. They don't have to load up their station wagon with their 2 kids, their little hubs, bubby tents, umbrellas, beach umbrellas themselves, their surfboards, their paddleboards, their buckets and balls. We need to have some of those amenities down the beach so that they can jump on public transport, and that may even be a trackless tram, which is designated to go from Glendalough to, where was it, Mr Mayor? I can't remember. That would be Scarborough Beach. So they can get on, they can get to the beach, they can go to the higher place, grab an umbrella, pay some money. They'll be paying a $10 bond or whatever I would imagine that the provider is saying. They'll enjoy their beach day in the shade and without getting skin cancer. They will drop their umbrella they'll get their bond back, and then they will jump on a trackless tram or public transport and head back into the suburbs. That might be as far as Doubleview or the freeway boundary, or it might be over to, good grief, it could be Darlington, encompassing all of Scarborough residents. That's the whole idea of this. This is a no-brainer. This is a 2-minute decision. Thank you.
You'd think so, but there's about eight more of you. Councillors, I'm just going to make a brief statement and ask you all seriously consider how much you want to strongly debate a beach umbrella. Reminding that you have 12 more notice of motions following this that you must debate as well. I'm happy to follow through the list, but if you're just going to talk about a story when you want to go down the beach to use a beach umbrella, I suggest it's not going to sway anyone. Keep it brief and succinct. Councillor Thornton, you're next.
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd like to know a little bit more detail about the model that we're going to use. Is it going to be similar to a European beach where they cordon off an area? And
that is unknown. I can answer that now. So this is, when you read it, it's quite clear that it will go out and find out what the market will actually do. So that is all unknown at the moment. The engagement of a suitably resourced operator for the service.
Point of clarification, I did ask the question through you, Mr Mayor, and the officer did answer that the beach won't be cordoned off.
No, that was clear. Sorry, I just meant in terms of all the detail of exactly what services, etc., that would go through the actual expression of interest.
So are they going to be stationary umbrellas or are they going to be movable umbrellas?
I don't think none of that has been. It's very general. So it may not just be umbrellas either. When it goes out for an expression of interest, for example, someone might come, and this goes to my next, probably a question I'll ask Councillor Kristovich in a minute. Equipment could include lockers, but the provider will come back with what they would think they're going to do, and then officers will look at those expressions of interest and then pursue it from there.
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. I would just hate to support something that's going to create an exclusive club.
No, that's definitely not the intent.
That the European style of...
No, I think Councillor Migdale's very clear that wasn't the intent with this one. This is for public community.
No Ibiza.
Yep. Councillor Reid.
Thank you. I'd like to just reiterate your comment. It's interesting we can debate for hours an umbrella, but not other things, but that's good. Just a couple of questions. One, on page 86, it says that really it's not going to cost the city anything. But if we're going to go out for 18 months to see how it's going, we don't have a business plan. We probably have security issues. We probably have staffing issues. But according to this, it's no cost.
Yes.
How does it work out to be absolutely no cost?
Because there is no security issues with an umbrella on the beach. This isn't run by city officers. This is a private operator running this. We go out for an expression of interest and a private operator. If you think about the scooter trial, for example, the private operator runs the service, has their own insurances, does everything. We get all the data collected during that time, learn from the experience, and then we work out, knowing what their finances are, what money it generates, if there's a business model that's attached to it.
So wouldn't we be consulting the community and asking for a business model prior to endorsing it, and even for a trial? But if the answer is no, fine, I'll just remember
So the community won't be able to tell us a business model, but when we go out for the expression of interest, the market will tell us, because that's what they're asking for.
So
they will put forward a business case to the officers on what they want to put on the beach and how they will measure it as success and how they'll work with city officers. That will all be in the expression of interest.
So Is this going to be similar to when the e-scooters did their own consultation, and some of the results were that 70% of the people that completed the questionnaire actually used an e-scooter? So you didn't actually get the wider population, you got the people that were using it. So it just makes the results a bit skewed. But fine, we'll see what happens.
All right. Councillor Kristovich.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Look, again, I support this this motion.
Would you support it with the word lockers added in?
No, I would not. I want to do it as a separate, only because I'm not sure that this one will, as a separate. But look, a couple of questions I wanted to ask.
I don't know. Am I the only one that thinks that's?
A couple of questions I wanted to ask. Right. Firstly, I just wanted to make a comment about your comment, Mr. Mayor, about there being no cost for the scooter trial. There is a cost. It's a huge cost. It's the cost of officers' time dealing with complaints, community issues, councillors' time in dealing with issues. So there's definitely a cost with the scooters. May not be a direct dollar cost, but an indirect cost. There's a huge one to the city in that particular example. I'm sure it won't be the same case with the umbrellas and the chairs, etc. But the question I wanted to ask was, would we consider, and again, obviously, because we haven't had a chance to talk to people, like the Scarborough Surf Life Saving Club, for example, may want to be involved in this, in supplying equipment potentially. I don't know whether they are or aren't, because obviously no one's spoken to them. But would we talk to community groups in the area that have facilities that run beach services already as to whether they wanted to do this before we went out?
Point of order, Mr. Mayor, mentioning the Surf Life Saving Club, is Councillor Kristovic not a member of the Surf Life Saving Club?
Councillor McDowell, there's no point of order.
I'm not a member.
I get what you're saying about
No,
the
I just use that as one example, but then like the other groups.
Hotels.
So is that part of it? I suppose, can that be part of it or not?
All of those not-for-profit clubs would have the opportunity to put an expression of interest in.
Okay.
And I would suggest that none of them are geared up or have the ability
I
or
wouldn't have
financial
thought
backing
so.
to enter a
I wouldn't have
corporate
thought so,
arrangement.
but I thought I'd just ask because, and the other thing too, in terms of the umbrellas, and I haven't raised this before, but it is something I was thinking about. So in terms of the shade and the umbrellas providing the shade, say in Cottesloe Beach, they have permanent structures there, wooden structures providing shade for beach users. Is that not something we could potentially investigate for Scarborough Beach, whether there was any value in something like that or not as well? I'm not going to raise a separate notice of motion, but I just thought I'd mention it in the context of this, whether we've given any thought to that.
It would be very unlikely, given the CHRMAP reports you've received in recent times, that the city would invest in significant structures on the beach,
No, well, that's,
given the cost and the erosion.
and like I
the
said,
loss.
I mean, other than that, I'm very supportive, and I hope that we do find a provider and it has a positive result.
We must be getting towards the end of this. Councillor Olo, did you indicate?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd just like to say I'm supporting Councillor McDowell on this because we do need a trial. We are short on shelter at Scarborough Beach or any of the beaches, but especially at Scarborough. When you go there, there is not enough shelter, and yeah, a lot of people don't think, carrying umbrellas and all that because it is an extra weight for them. And to give this trial a go, I totally accept Councillor McDowell's, and 24 months, I can see why we chose 24 months. So, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor McDowell, would you like to quickly close debate?
Thank you, and I will be quick, Mr. Mayor, on closing this debate. I feel that it's really important for us to understand that the key factor in this notice of motion is being sun smart. We must be sun smart, and we must enable future generations to be sun smart. This sun is no joke. I dare say there'd be few people in this chambers who don't know someone who's either had a melanoma removed or passed away from skin cancer. It's serious, it's dangerous, and we need to adopt into our culture ways that we can be sun smart. It's that simple. This notice of motion will not see the city have to outlay any dollars. We do not have to outlay any dollars from the city's perspective to enable minded individuals who want to start a small business and offer their wares on the beach. We do not have to allow them to keep anything on the beach. By 6 o'clock, it can all be gone. Those matters will be resolved through our officers in the future. So we have a beautiful, clear beach, but during the day, in the sun, we are able to provide shade. Nothing more, nothing less. There will be issues to work through and finesse. We all know that, and we can be as involved and engaged, and working through the mayor with officers has never been a problem at the City of Stirling. If you don't be, what was the saying? If you do keep doing the same thing, you'll get the same results. We must think outside of the square, and we must pass on to future generations our respect for this son and show good behaviour. That's all. Thank you.
Phew. Thanks, councillors. That brings us to the end of the debate. Move Councillor Meekdale, seconded Councillor Perkoff. I will put that motion to the vote. Thank you, councillors. That is unanimous. I feel like a little lie down after that. I'm scared to go on. Item 14.3, Councillor Meekdale, your next notice of motion. Page
Thank you,
88.
Mr Mayor. And I will move the alt rec at the end of the report. Obviously, this is null and void now. Thank you.
Thank you. Seconder for that, Councillor Lagan. Anyone opposed? No, I'll put that to the vote. Thank you, councillors. Thank you. That is unanimous. 14.4, proposed notice of motion. Councillor Ferrante, Councillor Meekdale. Page 93, the parking
Yes.
walkway.
Yes, and I am moving this on behalf of my co-ward councillor, Ferrante, who is unable to be here this evening, and he makes very good points. Happy to move.
All right. Seconder for this motion, Councillor Kristovich. Is there anyone opposed? I'll put that to the vote. Just got one to go, I think. Yep, thank you. That is unanimous. On page 14.5, proposed notice of motion, Councillor Joe Ferrante on the road safety audit and Adair Parade. We do have an impartial interest from Councillor Meekdale on 14.5, proposed nom, an impartial as she is a JDAP member.
Do I need to leave chambers, Mr Mayor?
I wouldn't, let me check, because the decision's all been made, so I would think you are okay, but yes, there's no decision making to take place. That's the only real conflict with that.
I'll have to write that out as well then.
It's
Although
up-
I didn't sit on that.
I
so
don't think you have to
shouldn't
write, you didn't sit on the JDAP and
No.
the decision's been
I
made.
did. Do I need to form out a form? Fill out a form?
I wouldn't think so, councillor.
Because it's all decided.
I'm happy to provide that advice
Yeah.
myself, that the decision has been made, and this is just for a road safety audit to be made public. Yep. So, sorry, Councillor Meekdale, did I get you to move that yet? Apologies, Councillor Lagan, you're moving this one?
Yeah, I'll move the officer's recommendation.
Thank you. Is there a seconder? Councillor Kristovich, is there anyone opposed? No, then I'll put that to the vote. That is unanimous. Can I just ask a question following that, just so anyone watching, is that road safety report, will that be available through the website, through a link on the website? Is that how that will work? Ms Hughes?
Through you, Mr Mayor, it is attached to this item, so it will be part of this item in the minutes forever.
Okay. Thank you. Item 14.6, proposed notice of motion from Councillor Ferrante. It's nice of him to be here for all these. He threw at us. Built form transition between activity centres. Is that yours, Councillor Meekdale?
Happy to move this, thank you.
Is there a seconder for this motion? Deputy Mayor, is there anyone opposed? No, I'll put that to a vote. That's unanimous. Thanks, councillors. 14.7, proposed notice of motion. Councillor Farrelly, Scarborough ground light installation.
Mr Mayor, I think it's clear what is being proposed. The installation of fixed, ground lights. I will refer to the alternate motion. I think that covers what is really being asked, and the city officers have written it up, and I think it is clear what's behind it. Thank you.
Is there a seconder for that motion? Councillor Kristovich? Is there? Yep, it's investigating the provision of ground light installations around the precinct. Would you like a date on that, councillors?
Yes, could I have November 23?
Ooh.
too early for you?
I would suggest, let's just check, that's straight after, you may want to...
Early, what about March 24?
Yeah, I would say, is that better? Who's Mr Murphy? Is that you?
Mr. Mayor, I'm just being pointed out the report does say November, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah, which is the intention, so it'll be prior to mid-year budget review, so
Okay, there you go, so November 23.
we can manage that.
November 23. It's just that
I know,
this
you
is
don't need to
a
debate it.
request for,
Yep,
you know,
That's
yeah.
right. Thanks. There's no one opposed, so I'll put that to the vote. Okay, that's unanimous. 14.8, proposed notice of motion, Councillor Farrelly, the installation of fixed telescopes or binoculars.
Yes, I'd go with the alternate recommendation that the city undertakes a pre-feasibility study to consider the installation of fixed public telescopes or binoculars on the coastal walkway between Waterman's Bay and Scarborough Foreshore, and that a report be presented to a meeting of the Planning and Development Committee by November 23.
Well, I would suggest that one's a bit tight.
Oh, is it? March 24?
Yep, again, I'll just check with the officers. Have you got a date in mind? Ms.
Thank you.
Lombardo?
Through you, Mr Mayor. March 24 is a lot better.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, March 24. Thank you.
Great. There's no one opposed to that, so I'll put that one to the vote. Sorry, did I not have a seconder? Is there a seconder? Councillor Kristovich? Apologies. Now put it to the vote. That is unanimous. 14.9, proposed notice of motion from Councillor Migdale regarding oh no, it's Councillor Kristovich with lockers. Thanks. Your motion?
Thank you very much, Mr Mayor. The motion is up on the board. The alt-rec is what I'm moving. Do you want me to read the whole motion, or you have it just take it as...
I don't know, I've got deja vu here. It just looks...
What I will say is that I did speak to Councillor Migdale and the Director as well about the benefits or otherwise of keeping this separate. This motion is not specifically about Scarborough Beach. It's about the entire coastline.
Thanks. It's not up for debate, so...
Oh, sorry, yeah.
So, yep.
Yes.
So take a seat. You've moved your motion.
Yep.
Thanks. Is there... Councillor Farrelly has seconded. Is there anyone opposed? Is it just a question, Councillor Migdale? I'll just allow your question then.
I just want to know with regards to dollars if there's any potential outlay by the city.
I wouldn't think so. I think that's unknown. Mr Quirk?
Through you, Mr Mayor, no, the intention is for this again to be driven by the market. We will certainly try to reduce any resourcing costs by looking at locations that are supported by things like CCTV. But no, the intention again is for no cost to be incurred by the city as part of this initiative.
Happy? Good. Then no one opposed. I'll put this one to the vote. That is unanimous. I'm glad you didn't say that any louder, Councillor Perkoff. That is carried. Thank you. 14.10, proposed notice of motion, Councillor Lagan, batteries.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. I move the recommendation in the report and thank the officers for the work.
Thank you. And seconded, Councillor Migdale. Is there anyone opposed? I'll put that to the vote. Just got one to go. I think, Councillor Migdale, just your vote, please. Thank you. That's unanimous. 14.11, proposed notice of motion, Councillor Sandri. I believe, Councillor Lagan, you're moving this one. Thank you. And is there a seconder for that? Councillor Migdale. Is there anyone opposed? I'll put that one to the vote. And that is unanimous. Thank you, councillors. Item 14.12, proposed notice of motion, Councillor Thornton.
Yes, Mr Mayor, I'd like to move the alternative recommendation on page 159, please.
Thank you. Is there a seconder for that motion? Councillor Thornton. Is there anyone opposed?
It was Olo.
Sorry, Councillor Olo.
Oh no, we look alike.
You can't move and You can't move and second. Is anyone opposed? If not, I'll put that one to the vote. Thank you. That is unanimous. The next one is my notice of motion. Now, I will ask to vacate the chair and get the Deputy Mayor just to chair this one, just in case it's open for debate. Otherwise, I can't debate my motion.
Notice of motion 1413. Mr Mayor.
Yeah, thanks through you, Madam Chair. I've got an alternative recommendation, same intent, just that the officers present a report to the Planning Development Committee meeting to be held in November on the potential to review planning policy requirements that trigger a financial contribution as part of development approvals such as public art and include 12-month moratorium on these contributions. So it's allowing the officers time to make sure they bring the information back to Council.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Is there a seconder? Councillor Kristosevic. Seconded. Is there anyone opposed? Councillor Farrelly, you're... Okay. Am I going to give the Mayor an opportunity to speak? Okay.
Question. Is it only in regard to, through you, Deputy Mayor, is it only in regard to public art, or is it also in regard to the Scarborough Master Plan area? And there was 3 or 4, I can't, sorry, I should, parking and things like that.
Thank you, Mr Sevic.
Through you, Deputy Mayor. Councillor Farrelly, look, we'll consider, I guess, all those frameworks where we have, I guess, a financial contribution or an impact on developments, and that will be considered through that planning report in November. So yes, on page 160 it does talk about infrastructure in the Scarborough redevelopment area through the developer contribution plan. So we'll look at all those policies and parts of our scheme which require a contribution and consider those.
Can I ask another question then? In regard to the moratorium, 12-month, that could be then across the board that we wouldn't ask, or the city would not ask for a financial contribution as part of a development approval for buildings or anything in that regard?
Mr Sevic.
Through Deputy Mayor, Councillor Farrelly, look, as part of that review and consider it, that may be the case, but we need to do a bit of work in between now and November to work through that process. We may seek some legal advice and look at, I guess, you got planning policies which are a lower level than scheme requirements, so we need to look through all those provisions and make an informed recommendation through a report back through the committee.
Through you, Deputy Mayor, I should say, as the Chair, can I ask Mr Roddick one other thing, that in regard to now moving development approval process into the City of Stirling from last Wednesday, which has nearly taken 4 years to get through to legislation, part of that was to add to the transparency and also, in a way, to have the city be given an opportunity to work with development builds, whatever height that the levy would follow that through. So there could be changes to make sure that the levy, well, if it's only on 8-storey maximum, Development WA only had it paid for 8 stories, even if they approved 20 stories. So the thought for, I suppose, this move into the city would be that if there are going to be high rises agreed to by...
Point of order, Madam Chair. I would like to suggest that we've gone into debate now, and I'm...
Oh, well, I'll have a question then.
It's only that
we're waiting
it's
for
asking
the
a lot of
question,
questions I can
Councillor
perhaps answer through debate.
Can you ask the question?
Yeah, thank you. Sorry.
Otherwise,
sorry.
Happy to go to...
No, I don't want debate. I just want, is it going to mean that where you have those opportunities to, now that it's within the City of Stirling's development approval, what do you call it, control, that you would not participate in trying to get levies and then opportunities for...
May I ask the question, Mr Roddick?
All right. or contributions in lieu. Yeah, I'm just.
Through you.
I'm happy
Dan-
to provide some clarification on my intent if that helps.
That'd be
Because I think it is, if it's, with your indulgence, Madam Chair, it's only, I think the questions, and especially through the questions even in public question time, there is no intent here to give a free kick.
Wait one moment. I'm moving to you to open, and then we can follow through. Mr Mayor, go ahead.
So this has come about because I'm really aware over my time, it's specifically about doing some research on all those small amounts. For example, when we take a contribution for parking but don't actually make the developer put the parking in. And they've all got these requirements have to be used in certain little areas. And what we do is over a period of time, we have a developer sacrifice tens and tens of thousands, sometimes up to $1 million for a development, for bits of public art or parking in lieu, and we end up with all these reserves that sit here. So, for example, Public Open Space Reserve, the city holds about $14 million in public open space reserves that sat there for over 10, 15 years, not from last year or the year before. That's not the intent of those reserves, and it's certainly not the intent of the city's intent when we ask for that. What we want to do is get a better public realm and better amenity. So my issue isn't that we get the developer to contribute to the surrounding amenity or contribute in something that's going to happen immediately. It's us taking money when we have no intent to do something in the future and to bring that sort of stuff back. The other thing that we don't take into account when we do that is, despite what some people may say about developers being the bad guys, the only people that pay for this are the kids who are trying to buy those low-cost housing apartments at the moment. They'll pay for the average apartment anywhere between $10,000 and about $30,000 extra per apartment, because we have this bright idea that we want some bike rack out the front that looks like public art, and we're making them pay for it, and they've got to do it because it's prescribed in the development application. And I don't have any problem with public art. I think it's one of the things we should be doing, but I just don't think we should put the onus onto developments. And when they're at this critical mass where they're not big enough and they have to provide a certain amount and just do it because they have to, the outcomes are poor. We've seen it hundreds of times. So it's to look at all of those. The other thing we don't take into account, a lot of those big developments, we get the kickback anyway. To give you an example, something like the Karrinyup development, it wouldn't surprise us to find that it's about $2 million every year. So even though we still made them pay $1 million for some public art, and they probably paid millions of dollars for public realm upgrades, every year from now on, $2 million every year we get in increased rates. And many of the developments through that Scarborough Master Plan area, the increase in rates are anywhere from, some of the examples are between, used to be 1,000, now it's 30 or 40,000. So it's very significant. So we do get the money that we can put back into that area anyway. Thanks.
Councillor Christosavic, did you want to add to that?
Look, all I'll say is that it makes sense to review these things, and it makes sense to get an idea of what developers and the community is thinking. So I think it'd be great to get the feedback from the officers to see how it's gone up to this point, so that we can make whatever adjustments or changes we need to.
Thank you. Is there anybody opposed? Councillor McDale?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I'm not opposed as such, but I'm sort of hesitant because, bless you, because I feel that, you know, as the Mayor has indicated, we do have certain funds where there have been monies collected for the purpose of public open space and monies collected for the purpose of public art, and potentially public art should also include streetscape activation, generally as a term. That could be something we consider incorporating into the policy. But I don't think it's a mistake to collect those funds, and I don't agree with having a period of time which would be a moratorium for those who are applying for planning approval. So I don't agree with that. I feel that...
Councillor McDowell, so you're opposed?
I am
or have you
opposed.
got a question there?
No, I am opposed.
Speaking against?
Yeah, I'm speaking against. So I believe that, if anything, we need to workshop how we can better utilise the funds that are set aside for public open space and the funds that are set aside for public art, and, as I said, potentially broaden that term to include street activation. That's my perspective on it. So where we see developers who, let's say, they had to pay a $10,000 contribution for 6 or 8 apartments, and they are not engaged but decide to secure public art themselves, and by some people's accounts, even though beauty is in the eye of the beholder with public art, potentially what the city should say then is we will utilise those funds to upgrade the streetscape and provide greater amenity. But I think that we have got a lot of room to improve in our processes. Should we throw the baby out with the bathwater and call it a day? I don't agree with that. I don't feel that that would be the right way to go. So I can't support this as it is. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McDowell. Was there anyone else? Councillor Dudek. Sorry? I saw your hand. Do you want to throw a coin there?
Yeah, thanks. No, I did want to continue on with, now that we've opened the debate. Thank you. And thank you, Councillor Dudek. Look, I'm looking at what the Mayor did say, that you've got these reserves, they are gathering money, and my belief is that the money that has in those reserves, if it is cash in lieu, if they've decided not, it should be spent actually in the area where those where it's been collected. And I will use the where I live in Scarborough, in the master plan area. There's a great loss of amenity in that area. We could name things like the shadowing that's increased dramatically, so that someone has to use the heater on now in winter, where they used to get the sunlight. Quite a difference in costs. But those sort of things have happened right across. But if you actually then, as I think you did, Councillor McDowell mentioned, if you had the verges, if you had the streetscape looking fantastic, you actually have a nice place where you're walking around, a greater walkability factor and things of that nature. Look, you will have the ones that... And secondly, if we were going to get the builds that were amazing, that really, really enthralled us to come to see how these were designed, how they were designed sustainably, then you might say, well, you've got all those sustainable attributes in your building. It looks fantastic. People want to live in those buildings without a whimper. That's where they're gravitating towards. That's when you might do with your cash in lieu, say because of that, you know, the cash in lieu has been spent, and there could be some agreement set in place for those developments. But at the moment, we are not getting buildings, the latest buildings are in Scarborough. We're not getting buildings that are actually enthralling us. We're getting buildings that just ruin the rest of it for everyone else, and they don't make it as if you walk out, and I go down Hastings Street, and there's an...
Point of order, Madam Chair.
I know.
We're debating
Right.
financial contributions, not design outcomes of buildings.
Yeah, sorry, my apologies for distracting you, but I keep thinking of some of these buildings. But it is a cash in lieu obtained. I think it should be spent in the area. If you've got some other opportunity where you actually can give it to the developer because they've done amazing stuff, that's something to further discuss. But not to completely give a moratorium on all developments, because I can tell you they're skimping from some of the things that were mentioned only a couple of months ago with one of the latest bills that's going to be decided in Development WA. Even though we're finished with Development WA, it will have to be decided still. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Farry. Councillor Dudek.
Yes, thank you. This is just a quick one, and in general, I agree with the intent of this motion, as there's lots of vacant blocks in the Balga ward as well that would desperately love some development. The only concern I have is potentially that having this motion pass and the potential of a moratorium come in November when there's another council meeting on this, is that there's potentially some applications that might get held over until that point, with developers knowing that they might be able to...
Just on that, Councillor Dudek.
So yeah, I was going to
Mr.
ask, are there any developments that may get held over?
Through you, Deputy Mayor and Councillor Dudek, as written, the notice of motion requires a report to be prepared by the officers. We'll consider a lot of what's been discussed tonight. I think if you look at the reason why the Mayor has put this notice of motion forward, in his reason, is about the impact on the development industry now. It's not that the policies are questionable. they're there for good reason. The consideration of this is just putting a stop on the imposition of conditions which relate to financial contributions for 12 months because the development industry are doing it hard. It's not about exploring whether or not these are good policies or how they should be applied. This will simply be a review of can we place a moratorium on these policies which require financial contribution.
Just to clarify, my question was more having the potential of this moratorium come, will there be any developers that are currently got applications that they might put through, withhold that until after this has been decided? Is there a potential that we could bring this forward to the Planning and Development Committee meeting in October, or is there a restriction because of the caretaker period?
There's no meetings in October.
My calendar there is, but may not be.
Okay, Mr. Rodich.
Through you, Deputy Chair, Councillor Dutton, it would really depending on what the outcome of that report is and when council would apply that moratorium. But look, you know, we are very transparent in what we do at the City of Stirling, and people would be aware that we would consider this, and that would be up to an applicant to, I guess, consider whether or not they lodge an application at an appropriate time. Council will need to consider, if they do consider a moratorium, when that applies and to what development, and we can provide, I guess, a review of what we have had in the system for the last few months when we consider the report in November. We can consider all those things.
Was there anything further, Councillor Dudek?
Fine, nothing further.
I'm just checking. Pretty sure we don't have a P&D committee in October anyway. Sorry, so we're talking November for the first one after the election. Councillor Lagan.
No, sorry, 10th of October, Councillor.
Councillor Reid. Either.
Yeah, thanks, Madam Chair. Just a point of clarification for me in the wording of that, it says a review of the planning policy requirements. Is that local or is that state and local under our local policies?
Mr. Reddick.
Through you, Deputy Chair, Councillor Lagan, that would be a review of all. My view as a Director of Planning that the City could only apply that to the policies which are our local planning policies. We could advise the state that we, for instance, don't support providing public open space contribution on this development, but it would depend on who is the decision maker as part of that consideration of an application.
Does that answer your question, Councillor Lagan? Yes. Okay, Councillor Ree.
With regard to, whilst I don't agree with having a moratorium at this stage, and I think it can be used and abused a bit like the building regulations under the emergency provision that went from 2 to 4 years, which we really need houses built here. So if we were going to do anything, what we would be doing is saying to the state government, hey, don't have a 4-year approval process if we want the houses right now. So I hope that's written in the report. The other thing is, with the cash in lieu of car parking, etc., and the contributions, I hope that the report does actually say how much money we've been making in the last 4 or 5 years and how much we will lose, the ratepayers will lose. I do recall some developers saying they wouldn't develop in the Stirling City Centre project unless they made $1 million profit. Now, that $1 million profit for them is a lot of public art for us, or a lot of facilities. So I think that we need to, and I take on board your comments, Director, that it's going to be actually in the report, that things like the financial implications of what we lose by doing this. Also, I think we need to say that 12 months for what? They've already been given a whole lot of allowances. If we've got a 4-year build, they might turn around and say approval. They might say, I don't want my 12 months off now, I want it later. So I think all those options and anomalies, I believe, just need to be addressed, and hopefully the staff, whoever is doing that bit, is going to take that on board.
I think staff are taking notes, and I'm getting nods all around. Councillor Hatton, did I see you indicate? Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Chair, Madam Deputy Mayor. Look, it is disturbing to hear that developers are shying away from the City of Stirling, and it may not just be because of these provisions. It could be a number of reasons, and I certainly have heard out there that that is happening. It is disturbing that we're not providing development for housing, but the provisions, I believe, are under the state planning framework, and mentioned in the report here are 5 specific provisions. It also mentions in the report that there are other examples, or these are the examples, the 5. Could I have the officers please provide maybe some other examples apart from these that are dot pointed on page 160, because I'd like to get a better understanding. And also, the intent of this is an investigation, and I don't see any harm in an investigation, but also I would believe that if it's investigated properly, then those 5 key dot point provisions would not necessarily be changed, but there could be 1 or 2 of those changed. It might just be the public art. The cash in lieu for parking might remain.
Let me get some comment on that from Mr. Rodich.
Through you, Deputy Chair. Councillor Hatton, look, those, I guess through the officer's consideration of this notice of motion, the examples which come to mind, I don't think there are any actually other ones than those listed there. But of course, the whole purpose of, I guess, this report and investigation over the next couple of months will be to determine, first of all, can this be considered, and of which policies would this apply to, and then it's up for council to consider. The Mayor's notice of motion is just requesting a report to be provided at the November Planning Committee, and we can absolutely provide a report to council to make a decision.
Thank you. No further.
Nothing further. Councillor Olo.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's just a clarity. On the 3rd of October, we do have council meeting, and on the 10th of October is planning and development. So there are 2 meetings in October. Thank you.
Thank you, and we'll be in the caretaker mode right then, up until the end of, after the 21st of October, as far as we know, after the election. Was there anybody further that would like to make a comment 2 or 4? No other questions. I'm going to go to Mr. Mayor to close.
Yeah, thanks, Madam Chair. Look, I hear the concerns around the table, and I agree with all of you. That's why the motion was to investigate it. And it may well be that some of them are a step too far, but I think it's important it's a reality. It's not developers are shying away from the City of Stirling, but developers in general are putting DAs in all around the state right now, and they're not breaking ground. If you look around, you just don't see cranes up at the moment. Developers aren't happening. And if you ask the Property Council, if you ask the state government what the number 1 reason developers aren't developing low-cost housing, it's because of the cost of doing business at the moment. And a lot of these things on their own aren't significant, but when you add them all up together on a development, they can be very significant. But this isn't something we need to rush. I very much want to make an informed decision, which is why I've asked officers to do all that investigation, come back with what it will cost the city, what it will cost our ratepayers, and what those implications are long term, so we can make an informed decision. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Rodich. Did you want to add something there? You're looking like you're starting up. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You have now closed debate. I'm going to go to for the vote, please. Thank you. That is carried 11-2, and we have those in favour: Councillors Credo, Dudek, Hatton, Christoservic, Lagan, Olo, Perkoff, Proud, Vree, Thornton and Mayor Irwin. Those against are Councillor Farrelly and Councillor McDowell. Thank you. And there so ends my time here. I will hand back to Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Have my contract.
Thank you, councillors. We'll now go to item 15, notice of motion for consideration at the next meeting. Councillors, just put your hands down for a sec. This is a mayor lecture. Councillors, I do want you to be considerate when you do your notice of motions, understanding that it's... I won't go into it. I'm just making it very clear at the moment, when a lot of the items discussed tonight, you talk about the cost on the City of Stirling. The other thing I hear often from councillors is, I need to get quicker responses from officers and I need more assistance from officers to serve my community. I can tell you now, the amount of notice of motions coming in are exorbitant and extravagant in what they ask sometimes. And when you put them all together, especially when we're getting something 3, 4 from one councillor each night, no one in particular, but those sort of things, the amount of officer hour time, if we total this up, would be another report on its own, and it's significant. So I'm just notifying you that what I will be looking for is I will be exercising as we go forward my ability to rule noms out of order if they don't show any degree of research. Now, I don't want to single any out tonight, but for example, if there's something significant, I don't know, and this isn't singling out one particular motion, but say binoculars. If the councillor can't show that they've actually seen this in use anywhere and done their own research or done anything, I'm not going to allow officers to spend 2 weeks of their time to go and research around the world how to do this and what providers there are and anything. It's just exorbitant amount of time. That's not singling out that one. There's lots of them. If they don't, the noms must be written by yourself. It is not the officers' jobs to write all your noms. At the moment, councillors are just saying, I've got this thought bubble. Officers, go and write my notice of motions. They're your notice of motions. You will research them and you will write them. You will also need to show that you've collaborated. So right now we're seeing a number of notice of motions that are all completely similar, but done separately because of people want to keep them separate, or they're on the same item, or the same, they relate to exactly the same block of land, but there's 4 motions around those. We need you to collaborate and combine them and make them simpler. There's just too many. I've made my point. Please consider that when you put your noms forward. I will now start on this side of the table and go around. If you have one.
I do.
Yes.
I do. Okay. That we review the emergency calls procedure. Review of the emergency calls procedure and protocol be presented at the next community and resource meeting, outlining the current protocol and procedures for members of the community who lease or license a City of Stirling building, and if the hazard or issue has derived from a City of Stirling owned or managed facility or infrastructure. And the reasons are that on several occasions been brought to the attention of councillors that when a pipe bursts or drain overflows or a hot water system fails, etc., City staff advise that they are unable to address the issue in a timely manner, which has resulted in more damage to the property and contents and an increase in insurance premiums. And that is, the review of it means that all they have to do is give you the report that's already written.
Okay.
That
So,
we all know.
so what I need you to do, let's just not go to the reasons, just call out what the motions are. So you've got number 2.
Number 2, that the City of Stirling consider implementing a mandatory safeguarding certification course for all staff and elected members.
Thank you. And item 3.
That the City of Stirling consider implementing a mandatory police clearance for all elected members and staff.
Thank you. Okay, that's all right. So next. Yeah, these are just noms you're putting up. I'll have a look and, yeah. As I said, some of the noms, I've no doubt, will probably be ruled out of order as we go. And is there anyone else who's got a nom tonight? Yeah, no, I've gone that way, but there's no indications. Councillor Dudek?
Thank you, yep. That the city proceeds with a one-off sweep / clean-up of all dumped junk and rubbish in the Balga ward that's currently on verges and in public spaces. That the city encourages through social media and other means residents to report instances of legal dumping through the Snap Send Solve app, and that once a report is received through Snap Send Solve or by other means, the waste operation team aims to remove the junk / waste within 3 business days. I'm happy to hear an alternative recommendation on that for next week. Work with the officers for what's reasonable in terms of time frame and such. It's just the intent of getting some sort of clean-up.
That's okay. Councillor Farrelly?
Yes.
You didn't put your hand up. I'll come back to you.
Oh, sorry. All right.
Councillors, I went around. We'll go back through the live stream. I clearly went this side. I went around. I will come back to you, but you didn't have your hand up.
Okay, that there be monies included in the mid-year budget review 23-24 to review and assess building a new club rooms for Wembley Downs Soccer Club on higher ground at Butler's Reserve as a building priority to be undertaken by the city. Once again, they're underwater.
Thanks. Next.
The second one, you could actually probably put it with one of Councillor Christovic's. It's on a different part of the coastal ward, though. That a report be presented to Council outlining possible traffic calming measures on Brighton Road between West Coast Highway, Hastings Street, and from Hastings Street to Calais Road is due to the noise of motorbikes, etc., hoon driving.
Thank you. Councillor Thornton?
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. I have a notice of motion that leads from the public questions that we heard tonight, that a report be presented to Council on the relocation of the Cedric Street wetland, and the report is to include the history of the wetland, the requirements of the Ministerial Statement 522, and the City's management responsibilities.
Thank you, Councillor. And Councillor Kristovich.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Having consulted with the directors, I was strongly encouraged to put these two motions up. The first one... well, I did offer to withdraw one. But I said
So again, I just want to be clear. These are your noms. You don't get to say they're officers.
No, they are my noms, Mr Mayor, but I did say, do you think this is worth me doing or not? I don't want to waste your time. So
I'm guaranteeing they rolled their eyes and they didn't encourage you.
Well,
Councillor, off you go.
One of them I was prepared to withdraw, but was encouraged to put it forward.
Let's hear them.
So the first one is, which one is up there at the moment?
It's the Flora Terrace.
Oh, okay, yes. So that a report be presented to Council regarding the opportunities for redevelopment and or activation of the buildings, including rooftop at the Mount Flora Museum. I won't go into the details, but and the second one is that a report be presented to Council outlining possible traffic calming measures between West Coast Drive and Arnott Street Trig. And secondly, that the City writes to Main Roads WA to request approval for reduction in the posted speed limit on Karrinyup Road between West Coast Drive and Arnott Street from 60 kilometres to 50 kilometres.
Can I just clarify, that is on Karrinyup Road?
That's correct, yes.
You might need to write that because there's other streets that go between West Coast Drive and Arnott Street.
Oh, well, no, it says speed limit on Karrinyup Road.
Where's it?
The Karrinyup Road, it's highlighted.
Oh, on the top, okay. On the, yeah.
Yeah, and it's between West Coast Drive and Arnott, which is actually our road. It's not Main Roads Road.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
That Councillor Proud.
Just to meet your criteria, I provided 4 pages of background leading into this quick one-worder, one sentence, that a future report be presented to Council on potential recreational improvements and bird waterers in identified parks in Innaloo.
Thank you. Those little things that sit in the trees for the birds to come and have a drink.
They're irrigated.
They're a thing. Thank you, councillors. Item 16, questions by members of which due notice have been given, I have nil, and new business of an urgent nature, I have nil. Takes us to matters behind closed doors. So I'll have a mover and a seconder to go behind closed doors. Moved Deputy Mayor and seconded Councillor Perkoff. Just a show of hands to go behind closed doors. Councillors, that is unanimous. To those members of the gallery, thank you for your patience tonight and hope you enjoyed, and I hope you go home knowing a little bit more about umbrellas. And to those viewers at home, thank you for watching us this evening. Following the closed door session, we won't go back onto the live stream as the meeting will be closed. So good night to those viewers at home.